what's yours? This is Everybody's Got Opinions with Keith D. Williams, former Wayne County Commissioner and political consultant Skip Mungo. We're going to take what you say and put the whole world on blast. Don't go away.
Welcome to Everybody Has an Opinion. Everybody's got it as a discussion about issues that deserve your opinion. I'm your co-host with my fabulous friend and political consultant Skip Mungo. Our show sponsor is Courageous Detroit Radio. Follow them on www.courageousdetroitradiostation.com. Today's topic is the state of Detroit politics and how did we get there? How did we get here, Skip? Previously, on the first show, we talked about we came from the 40s, about Black Bottom. We talked about Jerome P. Kavanaugh getting the black vote when we started participating from that perspective. And then we talked about, we never finished this off. And so I want to take it from 1970 to the present day. Kavanaugh stayed how many years? 8 years?
Yeah. From 62, was he elected in 62?
And he lost in 68. Well,
I think he, did he run again? I don't think he lost. Those riots.
Yes.
He ended up running for United States Senate at some point and lost.
Yeah, you're right.
But I think Roman Gribbs came in office in 1970.
But he got voted in 1969.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Roman Gribbs was a moderate Democrat.
Yeah.
He played a little Law and Order like they always do.
He was the sheriff prior to becoming mayor. He used to be the sheriff before Bill Lucas. Wayne County Sheriff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why history is very important.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he ran on Law and Order and things like that. And at that time, Detroit was still about 85% white.
Right.
Okay. In 1970 up to 1974, he played moderate politics. He reached out to that business community, and black folks didn't play an integral role in the politics, but I don't know who the Common Council was, the person who represented the Common Council at the time, and how many black was on the city council. But black folks stayed in certain areas, and I remember as a kid, I lived in Northwest Detroit, University District,
Palmer Woods, was off limits.
It's off limits, okay? And I could walk down on Livernois and shoe shine, but I couldn't live there, okay?
My father told me first ticket he ever received in his life was driving through Sherwood Forest, man. Police sitting on the side, turn around. He said he saw him take a double look, pulled him over, gave him a ticket. But the ticket was a warning. Stay away from that neighborhood.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid living on Puritan, Illinois, University of Detroit, it was right in my vicinity, okay? Right. Every day I saw University of Detroit as my backdrop, okay? And I used to see nuns walking around. That was unprecedented. Not many black kids saw a nun in the neighborhood, okay? And my neighborhood was white.
Right, yeah, okay? I'm sure.
And then after the riots, guess what? They started dispersing, okay?
But, if I may.
Yes.
The population started changing, the population trend started changing prior to the riots. See, white folks was leaving the city of Detroit. They started leaving in droves in the 50s.
Yeah, that's when they built the freeway system.
Exactly. Yeah. That's right. And
as they destroyed Black Bottom, they was using that to expand their demographics.
Exactly. They started moving Northwest Detroit.
Right. And then Southfield.
Oak Park.
Southfield was the first major city other than Detroit that got built during that time.
And so
it was because in Detroit at that time, it was 1.8 million folks living in Detroit.
Yeah.
500,000 was black folks.
Yeah, it was the fourth largest city in the world at one point.
And was one of the richest cities in the world.
No. The richest city
in the world.
I mean, you can Google this. From 1950, when they do the census report, they take all type of data. 1950, according to the 1950 census and the statistics, Detroit, Michigan was the richest city in the world. 1960,
because
Detroit,
of what?
the automobile industry.
And what we're now going through.
What we're dealing with right now. That's right.
And see, people don't realize in 1900 there was 6,000 blacks living in Detroit. And then the mass migration started in 1929. Reason for the migration was black folks came to work for Ford Motor Company for $5 a day.
Henry Ford put a ad out all over the world.
Yes.
You had a lot of Europeans that came over here as well.
Yes.
And $5 a day, I think I did the math a few years back. It was equivalent to something like $200, $250 a day.
Yes.
But at a time when black folks couldn't get no decent work.
Yes.
All you had to do was come to Detroit. You didn't have to know how to read or write.
Right.
As long as you were capable of lifting and working, you was making a decent middle-class wages.
Right.
Like you said, what they're fighting for right now today. Also, now this is one thing that's never talked about with the population, when the population started to swell from 1910 to 1920, all the way up to the 40s. The population was growing. When black folk was coming here from the South.
Yes, because it was 120,000 blacks that came from the South and moved into Detroit. And then they had to find a place for them to stay. And so they directed them over in the black bottom on the east side.
That's right. But let me tell you what else came with those.
The racist, the rednecks.
That's right.
And the rednecks formed the Detroit Police Department.
Exactly. People don't know. In the 1930s, the city of Detroit had a massive hiring.
Yes.
Whatever you may call it. They because the population grew, the government had to grow.
Right.
So they had to hire more police. The police came from them southern plantations.
Yes.
Same place that
the one that was hanging us.
Exactly.
The one that was discriminating against us. Became our police force.
That's right.
And it was interesting about the whole deal is the government's policies on housing. Black folks got public housing, the Jeffries and the Brewsters, and the white folks got Northwest Detroit, affordable housing, brick homes,
that's right,
3-bedroom homes, and we languished in those projects for years until the market started changing.
Yeah, that's right.
And so between Cobo, 3 Republican mayors caused a havoc back in the 40s and the 50s.
Oh, absolutely.
Jeffries died, Van Antwerp took over, and then Cobo was the demon of all 3 of them, but they all was demons. But the bottom line is
Mayor Rating in the 40s. They talk about Kwame Kilpatrick. This man got indicted his whole police.
It was after Cobo had a heart attack, died. That's when Mariani came in.
No, I'm talking about prior to that.
Yes.
Prior to Mariani, you had a mayor named Reading. Reading.
I get that, yes.
He got indicted.
Yes.
His police chief got indicted. They was working with these number men.
Yes.
A woman committed suicide, killed herself and killed her daughter, and left a note pinned to her chest, exposed everything. You never hear about any of that.
But Jeffries, now what's so ironic listening to all this, call in at 313-379-3701, 313-379-3701, and be a part of the conversation, because we need your opinion today. Let me say this to you. The three guys I named, one building was named after Cobo Hall, and 2 streets were named after Jeffries and Van Antwerp.
Yeah.
Okay, if you look at the Skullduggery
and the freeway and the project,
the projects, okay, they after they did the Skullduggery, then they put their namesake on every street that we drive down in the city of Detroit.
That's right.
So let's move forward. So in 1970, that's when the mass migration left Detroit. It was 800,000 white folks, my sisters and brothers, that left. Okay. And so when Coleman got it, it was more majority black. Only way to be a majority black than it was white.
Yes.
And so the whole tax base left when they left.
See, that's the other thing that people don't talk about.
Right.
Between right after the war, all the way up into the 60s.
Right.
Over close to 140,000 manufacturing jobs left the city of Detroit.
Yes.
Between the population and those jobs,
yes.
If you want to know how we got to where we are, that's not the riots. The riots help, Not Coleman Young.
Precipitated the attitude that we can't trust black folks.
Man, again, that's why history is so important. The Detroit Free Press, I believe it was, they ran an article a few years back, and they talked about, they went back to maybe the last 8 or 9 mayors, and they talked about who was the most fiscally responsible, who's the one who kept Detroit from sinking. The best mayor we've had in the last 60 years.
It was Coleman Alexander.
The boogeyman.
Yes. They misconstrued when he told the dope pushers to get out of the city of Detroit. He wasn't telling white folks to leave the city of Detroit. Okay, so he didn't tell the boogeyman, he didn't tell them not to leave. He was telling the bad guys to leave. And they misconstrued
right.
that.
It was a reference to like an old Western movie.
Yes.
Where the good guy come in and tell the bad guys to hit the rope or the count, whatever, before sundown.
Right.
That's what he was saying. He wasn't telling. So, but you had people like Brooks Patterson, man, who played those racial divisive politics, who took that and he ran with that for the rest of his life.
And then he ran on that busing issue.
Yeah, with what's the woman name? Irene McKay.
Irene McKay.
Yeah.
And that caused some angst between Oakland County, Macomb County, and Detroit.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want us going across the boundaries into their neighborhoods.
Right.
Okay. They didn't want our kids to be with their kids. And so that caused that strife.
I grew up in Oakland County.
Yes.
We was bused.
Yes.
Over to Oak Park High
Yes.
School.
But let me tell you this. I was bused in 1963.
So
let me tell you this.
Henry
I
Ford.
went to Fitzgerald from the 1st to the 3rd grade, and then anybody east of Illinois got bused. I'll never forget that old bus that Rosa Parks rode on was at Midland, at the corner of Midland and Homer, Quincy picking us all up to take us to McKinney. I went from Burt Road, I went from Green Line and Puritan to Burt Road, called a school called McKinney. Okay? From the 3rd to the 6th grade. And I'll never forget going down that street, hitting the white folks came out on their porches. Here come the niggas, okay? And so I went through that maturation. I had to go through that process. And then what happened, I'll never forget this as long as I live. There was a Jewish kid named Joel Rosenberg. On my graduation, matriculating to middle school, one kid in our classroom had to take one of us home for lunch. Joe Rosenberg took me home. That's the first time I ate matzo crackers and got when I was getting acclimated to the Jewish tradition, okay? Right. And so Joe followed me to Metatol. Now I went to Metatol. Now this is 63. This is 63, 67. I was going to Metatol. I saw a different kind of black person, okay? Kids' father was professionals, educated, went to college, was doctors and all this stuff. My daddy was a factory worker. My mother did day work, okay? So I had to re-engineer my way of thinking to be a part of that atmosphere.
Right.
And then in 1970, I went to Henry Ford High School, and we had a race riot out there.
Wow.
We had a race riot.
They was having race riots in Ferndale and Oak Park.
Yes, they didn't want to stand.
Yeah.
So black folks have been struggling and fighting all through this process.
Let me share this with you. You know where I grew up at,
yes.
Royal Oak Township.
Right.
So Royal Oak Township had their own school district in the 1940s, 50s,
yes,
60s.
Right.
It was called Clinton School District. So Royal Oak Township had a school that went from the kindergarten all the way to the 9th grade. After the 9th grade, the kids were bused to Detroit public schools. We had to go to Northern.
Yeah, they went to Northern.
And at some point, the township fell behind on the tuition, and Detroit Public Schools said they didn't want any more kids from the township. Now, you had kids who were on their way to high school and in high school who were stuck in limbo. The governor, G. Minnie Williams at the time, he went to Ferndale because kids from Royal Oak Township had always gone to Ferndale schools and used to go to Hazel Park schools.
Yes.
But only on the east side, everything east of Wyoming. Everything west of Wyoming, they went to Northern. At this point, they had nowhere to go. Ferndale said, no, we don't want to take any more of them. The same governor went to Oak Park. Oak Park was like, no, we don't want any of them. He went back. This is a true story. It's documented. He went back and promised and delivered the city of Oak Park. I don't know how many millions of federal dollars, because he got with, I guess, maybe the state, United States Senator, whoever. They got millions of federal dollars. Also, everything Northland and adjacent to Northland, which is in Southfield, all of those property owners, including that mall, which is now a multi-use development, pay school taxes to Oak Park High School, not to Southfield. All that was to let 24 kids go to Oak Park High School from Royal Oak Township. See, what people don't understand, a lot of these suburbs, man, Detroiters and black folks built those suburbs up.
Like we built America.
That's right. Meaning this, when you talked about where you lived and the, you remember a time when...
Hey, listen to this. We moved on Homer Street in 1956. I was born in Women's Hospital, now Hutzel Hospital. We moved on Homer Street from Black Bottom. We lived at 3154 East 4th Street, which is now King's football field. Okay? And so we moved to Homer Street, and the white folks was our neighbors. Then when after the riots... They were gone. They were gone.
But so black folks came in and spent top dollar for them houses. They took that money and built up the suburbs.
Yes.
That's all that is,
right.
Man. All of those Bloomfield Hills, Southfield, Farmington is built on black dollars.
And mind you, we only had a few black judges at that time, a few elected officials. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next show we're going to talk about who are the elected officials at that time that was making history by being in the city, by representing us in a city that was predominantly white.
So when Kavanaugh ran for mayor, he ran on a ticket, and I have to do my homework. I apologize for not doing it. But he ran on a ticket. I believe it was, the campaign theme was 5+1. It was 5 council members, 5 liberal council members, plus him.
Right.
And I know for certain one, but I believe a couple of them were black. And that's, this is when you really started seeing black political power. Right around that time, I think Nick Hood maybe was elected to the Common Council. You had Nick Hood elected to Common Council. You had, what is her name? Her daughter just retired, Judge Ford.
Yeah,
she was the first.
Geraldine Ford.
Bledsoe Ford.
Yeah,
she was the first.
All black men were scared of Geraldine.
That's right.
Bledsoe
they called her Mean Geraldine.
Yeah, they called her Mean Geraldine. Okay, because she was sending them brothers up to Jacktown. Yeah.
That's right. She was the first black. She was the first black elected judge in the United States of America.
Yes,
but it happened right here in Detroit. So Detroit has always been on the forefront of progression. I don't. Again, that's why we're talking about now. How did we get to where we are now?
We got to.
We moved backwards.
But the bottom line, from the 40s and 50s, black folks were matriculating. They were starting to get a little wealth. The wealth was stolen from us and stuff like that because we couldn't own homes. In 1941, black folks lived on Burwood. And then from Burwood to Royal Oak Township, that's where black was fleeing at.
That's right.
And the first west side in Detroit, guess what, listening audience, guess where it was at? Tireman.
That's right.
Tireman is the first west side.
They call it the old west side.
The old west side. And if you look at Northwestern, they have a rich history of John Conyers, of the musicians, athletes, and all that other stuff, because this was an area where they had growth.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the West Side started coming, the Muffers of the world, and all that other stuff. And so black folks was now, the plants was smoking, they was heating up, they was trying to make a little money and stuff like that. Home ownership was out there for us for the askings. Kids was getting educated, and the school system was run by Norman Drockler. Remember Norman Drockler?
No, I don't.
Okay, Norman Drockler was the superintendent of schools at the time. Okay, and so then I went from Homer Street to all the way out to McKinney, to Metatol and Henry Ford. So my matriculations was leaving that neighborhood, was really now the heroin was coming in.
Yeah.
the riots, all the poison was coming in.
Yeah.
And so even black folks were trying to was fleeing too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
See, it wasn't just white flight; it was black flight too.
Yeah. Because you know how some Negroes do.
Yeah.
They get a piece of change,
and they won't listen. They talk. They want to be the only one.
They want to be the first.
Yeah.
First and only one.
Yeah.
And so then they start forgetting their roots,
Yes,
man.
absolutely.
And so when Coleman Young, when Gibbs lost, when Gibbs left, he ran against who was the crew cut
John Nichols, who became the sheriff of Oakland County.
John Nichols. Coleman ran against John, and his slogan was "Power for the people."
Yes.
That was Coleman Young's slogan. And guess what? He won. And then black political power started to change the very face of Detroit.
But now, you know what's interesting, Keith? When you look at when Coleman Young was elected, it was a whole wave of black mayors that was elected. You had Hatchett, I think, out of Gary, Indiana. Stokes out of Cleveland. Mayor Jackson out of Atlanta.
Right.
You had Tom Bradley in LA.
Yes.
Coleman Young in Detroit.
Then Harold Washington
came a little later.
Out of Chicago. Coleman was the gold standard.
Yeah, that's right.
Coleman was way back. Remember when he went to Congress and testified?
Oh, yeah.
And he was a bad brother.
Yes, he was. Rich and real smart. And let me tell you this, just to give you an example of Coleman Young, for those of you who not familiar with Coleman Young or his politics, was when Coleman Young was mayor of the city of Detroit, 1992, that was the year that they had the riots in L.A.
Yes.
Because of Rodney King. I'm sure you all remember Rodney King. He was beat up by the police officer. That same, and then they were tried and found not guilty, and that sparked the riot because of the police brutality. Now, Tom Bradley was the mayor. He was a black man, but everybody knew that was Daryl Gates' police department.
Yes.
Same year, 1992, we had a man here by the name of Malice Green who was beat to death by two police officers. Right. Beat to death.
Right.
There was never a rock thrown. Right. Never any, because that was an isolated incident, because we knew that wasn't Coleman Young's police force. That was his police force. He ran it, but we knew that's not how he conducted business. He didn't. What
Remember
he did.
The cattle progging.
Oh man,
out there.
I hear all the stories, but I don't remember.
I'm around a lot of police officers. The cattle prog. What was that police station over in Southwest Detroit?
I heard they used to take them.
Yeah,
man. I heard they used to take them in the basement.
Yeah, they were brutal, man. They were brutal. So politics changed when Coleman came. Coleman was the gold standard. The stuff you're seeing now, it would have never happened. But see, there's always going to be one co-conspirator that thinks he's better than everybody else. And I love the man. I love his family. Lucas became the county exec.
First county
exec
for Wayne County.
Before it was, you had the Drain Commission. It was all split up and things like that.
How many county commissioners did he use?
They had about 20 back in them days. Then they consolidated and brought it under one umbrella. And then Lucas became the county exec, and they was doing good things. But he got envious of Coleman's power.
And cut a deal with the devil.
He cut the deal with the devil. The Republican Party. He quit and got talked in and running as the governor of the state of Michigan, who voted for, in 1968, George Wallace.
Who voted for George Wallace?
Michigan.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Michigan
voted for George Wallace.
George Wallace won Michigan. That's right.
Donald Trump, it didn't come by happenstance. We're already history of that kind of person.
If you want to see, if you want to really know Donald Trump's politics, study George Wallace.
Yes.
No two people have ever been so much alike.
Right.
They careers. George Wallace was a demagogue, man.
Yes.
Everywhere he went, he drew thousands of people.
And that's what Donald Trump is doing.
Same thing.
The same rednecks that's not educated like some black. Why you blame us? Because we don't control no economy. We don't control the government. Y'all blaming us. Y'all should be blaming the Wallaces of the world, the George Wallace, because y'all have nothing in common with the Republicans.
Nothing, man. The one thing I admire about the Republican Party, they're
good at communicating.
Oh my God, man. They communicate so well that they have people voting against their very own interests.
Imagine living in Detroit when we had George Wallace living in our neighborhood.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's what the 1941 riot was all about.
Yeah.
They didn't want black folks living in Northeast Detroit. Where Sojourner Truth is.
The projects.
The projects. The government was building housing for black folks over there, and the white folks did not want black folks living next to them.
Or when the first
And
black
that
family
still continue.
Yeah, when the first black family moved in to the project.
Yes.
Who'd ever thought that they'd be fighting over projects? The Klan, because Michigan was a stronghold for the Klan.
Yes.
The Klan, man, marched out there in front of those projects and created a human barricade. Wouldn't let them move in, man.
Yes.
Seriously, that's Michigan. One thing you talked about, man, when you went to school and you had to, one of your friends had to take you, whatever.
Yes.
The one thing, man, when I traveled, I noticed Detroit, what we were truly, truly robbed of, man, is culture, different culture.
Yes.
Detroit is truly black and white, has been for years. Blacks never dealt with whites, and whites didn't deal with blacks here. And that wasn't by accident. That was by design. Again, when you look at how when the white folks start taking off and moving, they move originally from Black Bottom to West Side, 12th Street, Linwood, Dexter. From there, Northwest Detroit, Finkel, Puritan, 6 Mile, 7 Mile, 8 Mile. From there, Oak Park, Southfield, Farmington Hills, Bloomfield Hills. But now they doubling back, man. The kids, you go down on 12th Street right now. It's all white.
Go to LaSalle. LaSalle look like Grosse Pointe.
Yes, it does.
Right.
Yes, it does.
You see,
and listen, my brother Larry said, man, if you want to know when to buy in the neighborhood, he said, ride through the neighborhood. He said, when you see white folks walking up the street with them big dogs, he said, buy. Because by the time, when they start walking with them small dogs, you ain't going to be able to afford them no more, man. Yeah. And that's all that's down there now, man. That's all that's down there now.
Hey, they poaching down.
Yes, man.
They down there poaching, man. Everywhere we go, everywhere you go, you seeing them. So Kobe Young changed the dynamics of Detroit politics. He got control of the political infrastructure, and he rode that for 20 years. And the problem is, he didn't get somebody else ready for the next 20 years. So the next show we talk about, after Comey Young's election, what happened, and guess what? We got caught up in folks that didn't want black folks trying to matriculate and trying to make more money for themselves. They were doing it for themselves, and we got caught up in their politics. Your parting thoughts, my brother?
Well, listen, again, as always, it's a pleasure sitting across from you, and I appreciate this.
We appreciate each other, brother.
Really. But this show is extremely important. I hope that y'all who watching, listening, you tell people we here every Saturday at 12:30. Tell people to tune in and listen and get some of these lessons. Listen, normally you have to pay to get some of these lessons. We giving them to you for free.
And we have the experience because we have ran campaigns.
And been victorious.
Been victorious running campaigns. And I was victorious because
an elected official.
Of the consultant and the brilliance of Skip Mungo. So, folks, you can always get us on www.courageousdetroitradiostation.com. And in the future, I want you to come see Soul Village. Soul Village is an outdoor entertainment venue for the upcoming starving artists, R&B, jazz, and it's a beautiful place. It's quiet. You can enjoy yourself, and it's safe. God bless everybody, and stay tuned next week for Everybody's Got an Opinion.